Welcome back, everybody, to another week, another episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bove, joined by Sal Capaccio. So, Sal, now 1-1. I think the vibes this week a lot different than they were at this time last week. 7 days ago, the sky was falling, and now there's a little bit of optimism around the team again. It's funny how that can change that fast.
Yeah, and not only that, I don't think that people realize maybe even to the level of how well the Bills played, as much as they are feeling good about them. The highest scoring team in the league in week number 2, the largest margin of victory of any game in week 2 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Seems like everything is back to where it is. But you're right, the vibe, it's great. People feeling good. Josh Allen earns AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Ridiculous.
Week 1, nothing to see here. Just moving on. But they're still in a hole from week 1. We'll see how that resolves itself over the next couple weeks with Washington and then Miami come to Buffalo, but we still got to get there first. You're right. I feel it from the fans. Still have fans a little bit apprehensive after that week 1 performance, but I think week 2 really kind of made people feel a whole heck of a lot better.
Yeah, and even like at practice, it's just the team more upbeat. I'm not saying that they're overlooking anybody by any stretch or anything even close to that, but you can just tell they're looser. They're having a little bit more fun. They're enjoying themselves a little bit more. They were on edge last week. I think they realized that they missed an opportunity week 1 and they needed to respond in a big way. But now it's about stacking wins. Now it's about not just winning a game, it's about winning multiple games and then going on a run and kind of retaking your spot as the top team in the AFC East, one of the top teams in the NFL. So, you know what? This is a tricky task for them, though. Like, I think Washington's I don't even want to say a sneaky good team. Like, I could see Washington pushing for a playoff spot in the NFC.
100.
This is the best start they've had in a long time. Their defensive line is disruptive. They have playmakers, and there's something about Sam Howell, and I just respect his game. That he takes risks, he takes shots, he can make big time throws, he's got arm talent. Like, I think when you take all of those things and you piece them together, you've got a team that will not go down easy. And this is going to be a really tough matchup for the Bills.
Did you see the throw he made to Terry McLaurin, the one that's been going viral from the back angle? Amazing. Great throw. That's Josh Allen level stuff. It really is.
It's a Josh Allen
really good arm. Yeah, and he fit it in his tight window, post pattern there. They have a lot of talent on offense, no doubt about it. If there's one thing about him that I've got from some people in Washington, and I know that you spoke with one of them we're going to have here in a little while. Sometimes he might tend to hold on to the ball a little bit too long, but that's because he's trying to make a play.
Yeah.
And he does make a play oftentimes, right? So, that's where that comes from. But you're right. I think the poise he's shown, I give Ron Rivera credit. I mean, last year, everybody's like, you're sticking with Sam Howell this offseason. You're sticking with Sam Howell. Yep, they're sticking with Sam Howell, and he's rewarding them right now.
Yeah, and you also combine that with Eric Bieniemy, who I think was just looking for an opportunity to showcase himself as a coach and say, it's not just that I'm with Patrick Mahomes. I know how to draw an offense up. I know how to get guys open. I know how to have my quarterback make big plays. And so far, so good for Washington. And to your point about him holding on to the ball a little bit, that makes the injuries for the Bills that much more interesting because Leonard Floyd on the injury report, he doesn't practice on Wednesday. Will they have Leonard Floyd available? Because for the Bills, the defensive line has been a really, really strong area up to this point. I think they've all kind of exceeded expectations. But if you lose maybe your top guy, at least for the time being, that's a really tough blow. That's tough to overcome. You like what you've gotten from Epinesa. You like what you've had from some of the depth pieces. But you don't want to have to try that, right? You want to make sure that you've got your full team. I think Leonard Floyd's going to play, but I don't know. If he has any sort of setback, then why risk it?
He
right?
thinks he's going to play. He
thinks he's going to play.
You know what I keep thinking about, though, Matt? I keep thinking about Gabe Davis with the ankle last year.
Yep.
Gabe Davis, he sat out 1 week, and then he came back, and you could say he never was truly right because they never really allowed him. And this is not a criticism because he wants to play, and he's good enough to play. But you wonder if they'd maybe shut him down for a few weeks, and he says, okay, I'm going to get this right. Maybe last season goes a little bit differently for him. And he still had a good year, but you could tell he was kind of fighting it. I wonder if that's where they are with Leonard Floyd here in week 3, because this is apparently maybe a re-aggravation even of an ankle that he was dealing with. And you wonder, okay, is he going to go out there and play? And if he does, how compromised is he? Does he have a chance to, re-injure it? And can he really get fully healthy? So I wonder. And what's interesting is if he doesn't play, the guy that would be active would be Kingsley Jonathan.
Yeah.
Kingsley Jonathan would be the extra defensive end because he's on the roster. Kingsley Jonathan's the guy who last week Spencer Brown credited with giving him the best scout team look he's ever had, pretending to be Max Crosby, which is super interesting. So my thought was, well, get Kingsley Jonathan on the field then if he's doing that. Well, unfortunately, it could come at the expense of Leonard Floyd's injury. I don't know. We'll see. They could also elect just to say, we're going to take it easy on Leonard for a week and then let this thing heal up a little bit and have him ready to play the Miami Dolphins.
You're right, and that's probably the smart thing to do, but it is a bit concerning because, like I said, I think Washington's tough. I think you need your full team to go out there. You could go into Washington and get a win with, banged up Bills roster, but you don't want to try that. You don't want to tempt your fate and potentially fall to 1-2, staring Miami in the face next week. One of the teams that I think has really impressed a lot of people and potentially just be trying to play catch up for the entire season. So it's going to be interesting what they do. The optimistic sign of this is that, one, he thinks he's going to play, and two, there have been so many good, impressive performances from the defensive line this year that I think you do trust Greg Rousseau, you trust Ed Oliver, you trust Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips. He was out today with an illness, but it did not seem like it was going to be anything that stretches further into the week. So you have playmakers on the line if he is out. You just, hope that he's not out if you're a Bills fan.
Yeah, and if Micah Hyde can't go, I think that would mean Damar Hamlin would be up for the first time this year. Now, the good news on Micah is he, as you pointed out on the last podcast, he did podium after the game, which is generally a sign that it's not too concerning. And then he was actually out on the practice field, kind of walking around and doing some things. If it was really bad, you generally wouldn't have that with a hamstring. So I'm encouraged, but at the same time, you're talking about a 33-year-old safety here and 32-year-old safety. And, you want to make sure that he's good for the long haul. And if that were the case, then Damar Hamlin would be the guy that would have to go out there. And look, this is a Washington team with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson in the backfield, but Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. These guys, they have a good group of pass catchers. And Logan Thomas, who's in concussion protocol, though. Logan Thomas, we all love him in Buffalo, and the story, his personal story and things like that. And he's done a really good job. But that would be a big blow for them if they don't have him. He took a big shot last week from Kareem Jackson of the Denver Broncos, who wasn't suspended, maybe should have been. Second time in 2 weeks he's had a shot like that. But that's something that they're dealing with. But with him, that would even change the dynamic even more with the pass catchers they have.
I think I'm willing to say this is the best group of skill position players they've played this season. Is that a stretch, right? I mean, you think about the Jets, and you had Breece Hall coming off of an injury, and Garrett Wilson is, he's really good. But after that, I don't think you were overly concerned about Alan Lazard, about Randall Cobb, or about Dalvin Cook. Then you go to last week, Devontae Adams, once again, awesome. But after that, Hunter Renfrow had one catch in the fourth quarter. Jacoby Myers missed the game because of a concussion. Josh Jacobs, I know he was the rushing champ, but the week before he averaged 2.5 yards a carry, and then you held him to negative yards in the entire game. I think when you look at the group in totality, this will be the most skill the Bills have gone up against because of McLaurin, of Dotson, of Gibson, especially in screen passes. I think he burned them for a deep one years ago when they came here to Buffalo in like week 3. He had like an 80-yard touchdown or something. Brian Robinson has been playing really well. Like you said, Curtis Samuel, they've got speed. And speed is something that concerns me with the Bills secondary that's getting a little bit older, and somebody who's like Sam Howell, who's a playmaker. I think that they should be able to hold up, but a lot of it falls on the defensive line. They got to get there. And also Terrell Bernard was limited, right? What do you do if he can't go or if he has a setback?
Yeah, if he has a setback. Limited on Wednesday is generally an encouraging sign that he'll play. And look, the Bills are still relatively healthy. They have Von Miller on pup,
very healthy.
But take a look at around the league. There's injuries everywhere. Running backs are dropping everywhere. There's injuries.
I know.
This is not. These are guys that are a little banged up. We'll see where they go, but I don't want to paint the picture here that the Bills are in some dire. Oh my gosh, look at all these injuries. They still have a very healthy roster, pretty much all in all, and they're going to need as many hands on deck to beat the Washington Commanders. On the other side of the ball, a guy. Hey, we're going to talk about the same thing with the Commanders. Daron Payne missed practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury. He's one of the best in the business. He's playing at an all-pro level right now in the interior. And this game, to me, is going to come down to the Bills' ability or inability to control that Washington defensive line, which has first-round picks all over the place, and they're playing out of their mind right now with Chase Young and Montez Sweat on the corner, and then Allen and Daron Payne in the center. I just think this is going to be a really, really tough task.
It is, and this goes back to the Jets game and how the Bills handled the pass rush from the Jets and the mistakes that it forced Josh Allen into making. Can you make sure that you do not make those mistakes? Because besides the defensive line, there are opportunities against this defense. It's not to say that they're slouches, but look what Denver did to them last week.
Mm-hmm.
You can put up points. If Denver can put up points, you better be able to put up points. So, yeah, a lot of this is going to fall on their interior offensive line. Osiris Torrance just continues to get thrown into the fire here. I think they've liked what they've gotten from McGovern, and Mitch Morse is, just Mr. Consistent in the middle there. It is a tough matchup. I mean, it's a road game in the NFL against a team that was 500 last year, that's 2-0 to start the season. Obviously, there's a ton of excitement around that team, not just from the football side of things, but also from the new ownership side of things. Commanders fans are fired up, and I think the Bills are going into a pretty hostile environment, not one that they can't handle, right? I mean, they started the season on 9-11 against the Jets on Monday Night Football. Like, they've played in some big-time environments. This won't be anything like that, but, it just makes a tough matchup a little bit more tough.
What I read, like 170 alums also for Washington coming. Like, they're treating this game. There's a homecoming game for them in the sense of they're going to put out all the stops to try and beat the Buffalo Bills.
And to talk more about the matchup, we actually chatted with Craig Hoffman. He's from the Take Command podcast. So for more on what you need to know getting ready for this matchup on the other sideline, we'll hear from him. All right, we are joined by Craig Hoffman from the Take Command podcast. He's also over at the Team 980. Craig, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Happy to talk to the fine folks of Buffalo.
So 2-0. Did you expect this? Did the people of DC expect this? What's going on?
I wouldn't say it's a total shock. I definitely thought they might drop the game against Denver. I don't think Denver's that good. So I think there's also they played Denver and Arizona, but this Washington team's got a lot of promise. This weekend's by far the toughest test they'll have had, but I do think that there are some pieces that we'll get into, obviously, that give people here some hope for this year and certainly beyond this year.
Have the expectations changed going into the season? What were the expectations? And now that they have won their first two games, are people there like, okay, maybe this team can make the playoffs. Maybe they can make a little push?
Well, expectations were all over the place. Nationally, they were obviously not very high. A lot of people thought this would be one of the 5 worst teams in the league. I thought that was nuts because they went 8-1 last year and got better at quarterback and traded Scott Turner as an offensive coordinator for Eric Bieniemy, who's been in 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls. So I do think that there was definitely low expectations around the team nationally, but locally, I think most people kind of thought they'd finish in that similar 500-ish range. The schedule is definitively harder this year than it has been in years past. They have obviously some gaps that we'll get into, some of their weaknesses that could certainly bite them. And I think that part of the pessimism, to the extent that there was any, was those weaknesses were things that popped up last year. And it was like, are you guys going to improve this? Or are we just going to keep rolling it back and hope there's internal improvement and players get a little bit better and those weaknesses become strengths? And so some of those have been hit or miss so far through the season. And then the biggest question was obviously Sam Howell at quarterback. And I would say so far through 2 games, he's been pretty impressive. This is a kid who has a ton of physical talent, a fantastic demeanor, just doesn't seem to be bothered by anything. And if he's going to continue to get better, there are certainly segments of the fan base now that are like, well, why can't they make the Super Bowl? And I'm like, well, they've got let's relax. It's 2 games, and one of them you beat the Cardinals by 4. So let's chill a little bit. But I do think the optimism has grown. And then there's let's scale back for a quick second. There's optimism about this team and this franchise at large because Dan Snyder no longer owns it. Let's make sure that Bills fans understand the larger context, as if anyone needs this explained to them. But there is the larger context of the Wicked Witch is dead, and there is a general sense of optimism about everything that is far, far different than anything we've experienced in the past, even when this team has been good. I mean, the closest it's been to this here predates my covering the team, but the obvious 2012 year with RG3. And we all know how that ended. So hopefully this trends in a different direction.
You just brought up Sam Howell, and I've watched a little bit of the film from the last couple games, watched a little bit of the games. I like him. He seems like he's a playmaker. He seems like he's not scared to try and take the risks and take shots downfield. I respect that, especially for somebody in his position. So is he legitimate? Is he somebody who, he's going to get at least, the year, but could he be the long-term answer?
He absolutely could. It was funny. We do a segment on Tuesdays on the radio show called Overreaction Tuesday, and we bring in one of the other hosts from the station who's, I don't want to call him a hot take artist because the Linnell special is take something that is true and then extrapolate it out to the most optimistic extreme. And, one of his overreactions yesterday, one of his takes that I deemed an overreaction is Washington has definitely found their franchise quarterback. And I've just been doing this long enough, Matt, to know that when defensive coordinators get film on a guy, things change. And we are 2 games into this season and 3 games into his career as a starter. And so far, love what I see. And I think there are intangibles that, like, if I had to predict if they found their guy, I would predict yes. I would predict that Sam Howell is the quarterback here for the next 5+ years, presuming that, other outside circumstances don't change that or there's no injuries or anything like that. The things that I love, fantastic arm strength. Hilariously, like, this is such a silly metric, but last year in Madden, he had like the 5th strongest arm in the game. Like, that's an accurate representation of where his arm strength is. You see the touchdown throw last week to Terry McLaurin. It's like 35 yards on a rope right over Justin Simmons, a throw that is not available to many quarterbacks. Like, Josh Allen could make it, but Josh Allen can make every throw. Mahomes can make it, but like that's the kind of class of arm we're talking about here. If you want to see possibly even a crazier throw, go check out the 3rd down in the 2-minute drill that he hits to John Bates up the sideline. It's like 35 yards from the left hash up the right sideline. And you're just like, what is that? Like, that's alien stuff. And so there's that. His demeanor and kind of his mental makeup is fantastic. I've never seen a quarterback, certainly here, but even guys like Mahomes, like, you watch the quarterback series on Netflix, like, he gets frustrated, and I'm sure Sam does, but he just never shows it. And the kind of calm, leadership, demeanor type of stuff that he shows is A+. And, obviously I do my podcast with a guy who played 10 years in the league, and Logan Paulson. And he's like, it's different when you get in that huddle and you just look at a guy, and like the guy he always brings up from his career is Matt Ryan. It's like when I was in Atlanta and I looked up and saw Matt Ryan in the huddle, I was like, okay, we got a shot. I don't care what the scoreboard says. Like, we got a shot. And the fact that Sam Howell is inspiring that kind of confidence in his teammates is pretty special. And then the last piece on the positive side that I think is really important is his playmaking. He picks up first downs with his legs. Like, his last year at Carolina, the one that dropped him in the draft, he was phenomenal running the football. That's what they needed him to do. Unfortunately, the NFL scouts didn't like that too much, but he's got it. In the red zone, he hit some of the plays he's made are incredible, both running the ball in and kind of buying time and throwing from odd arm angles and finding throws that shouldn't be there. Like, you pause the tape and you go, where's he throwing? I don't know. He finds a little window, hits Brian Robinson for a touchdown in week 1 on a scramble. And that stuff is really exceptional. I think the negatives that we're still waiting and seeing on, he holds the ball way too long. I think that's something, the pocket awareness and kind of the footwork and timing and rhythm elements are still to be developed, but he's 3 games into his career as a starter. Absolutely things you can get better on, but he did take a lot of sacks at Carolina. So is this just who he is, or is it something that's a work in progress?
And for the Bills, that's potentially an area that they can exploit. The defensive line has been one of the very strong suits to start the season for them. So then we talk about the weapons, right? Everybody knows about Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson feels like he's fallen off, and Brian Robinson has kind of picked that back up. And then Dotson, like, I'm a Dotson dynasty fantasy owner. I really like the player. I think you could make the argument that as far as weapons are concerned, this might be the most legitimate group the Bills have played. The Jets have Breece Hall coming off the injury. Garrett Wilson's a stud. But then after that, there really wasn't anybody that scared you. Same thing last week. Like, Devontae Adams, unbelievable, but Jacoby Myers is hurt. So there's really not a secondary option. Washington has multiple options. Do they use all of these guys? Have they been involved as much as they should be?
Sure do. Last week, God, now I wish I could remember the stat. The Commanders put it out on social media, so it's easily findable for anybody. But it was the basic crux of the stat. I don't remember the number of receivers, but it was the most receivers in the history of the franchise that had 2+ catches in a game. So it was like 7 or 9. It was like some insane number. You're like, that there's that many eligible receivers they can rotate in. Like, it was crazy. We'll see what Logan Thomas's availability is. He took that massive illegal hit that for some unknown reason was not a suspension from Kareem Jackson in the end zone on a touchdown catch. So, they could be down there starting tight end, but like, Cole Turner is a pretty good player. The kid that they'll bring up, Curtis Hodges, is an effective receiver as long as he can finish plays and catch the ball, but a fantastic route runner at 6'8". Like, both of those are former college receivers turned tight ends. Bates is one of the better blocking tight ends in the league, but it can catch it a little bit. And then, you've got McLaurin, who's a stud. Dotson, who I think could lead this team in receptions when it's all said and done this year. Like, I think he's that talented and he's that good of a fit in the offense. He's going to get a ton of targets. The enemy's done a really good job so far of getting Curtis Samuel the right amount of touches. Yeah. Super dangerous weapon. Hasn't really exploded yet, but is a good receiver. He will get a couple of carries probably in the game, whether it's jet sweeps or they motion him into the backfield or whatever. They've had one of those in each of the first 2 games, and then try to get him a screen or 2. And then it's funny you mentioned it seems like Gibson's fallen off. Rushing attempts wise, that is true. But he actually played 35 snaps to Robinson's 38 the other day. It's just Robinson had 18 carries and Gibson had 2. Yeah. But Gibson is the explosive guy. Gibson's the guy that almost scares you more. Like, Robinson is a hammer. Like, Gibson's a bomb. And so, there's a screen they have late in the game that I don't know what the heck Denver was looking for. It's like it's 3rd and long. What do you think they're running? But Gibson is able to get out in space, and he's a shoestring tackle away from scoring on a screen. They'll get him probably 3 to 5 catches and another, somewhere between 2 and 10 carries. So he's a guy that I think is certainly worth being aware of. And then even like De'Ami Brown, their 4th receiver, he played with Howell at Carolina and is a speed, 4-3 guy. So can they get him loose on something? He's a big play threat. So they've definitely got a ton of weapons. Bieniemy and Howell, definitely spread the ball around. And can you, super focus on Terry and limit him? Yeah, but at what expense to those other guys, I think, is the question that a lot of offenses or a lot of defenses are going to have to solve. And then the other thing too is like, how much do they run it? Bieniemy went 33 dropbacks, 7 rushing attempts in the first half last week, and it was very even in the second half when they kind of exploded. So I wonder if that's an intentional choice and whether that's going to continue, because they can run it a little bit too. Robinson's really effective as a ball carrier.
I think Gibson burned the Bills for like an 80-yard run when they came here a couple of years ago early in the season. And you know what? I know the screen pass you're talking about. I jokingly tweeted the other day, if I was an offensive coordinator coaching against the Bills, I would call screen pass every single play because they don't know how to defend it. So that's an area that I think is very concerning for the Bills, at least defensively. Now switching to the Commanders side of it, like, everybody knows about the defensive line. They're awesome. What else though? What are the just kind of general scouting reports about the linebackers and about the secondary? Because it feels like that might be the area where the Bills could take advantage of them.
So linebacker is the kind of, when I hinted earlier that there was an area that could be improved, it seemed, coming out of last season, and then they really didn't. Offensive line was one. Linebackers the other. The O-line's been fine so far. I actually think in Denver they got to stretch. They played really well. But linebacker wise, like, Jamin Davis is a playmaker. He's former 1st-round pick, who was probably overdrafted, but was drafted based off his trades, and he shows it off last week. He makes the play that changes the game. They're down 21-3. And everything's going all wrong. He chases Russell Wilson down as a quarterback spy and is able to get him before he gets to the sideline, force a fumble, and then the Commanders literally went on a 32-3 run over the next couple quarters. So Davis is a potential playmaker. They brought in Cody Barton from Seattle in the offseason, and he's been pretty disappointing. Seems like he's late to a lot of stuff. He got caught in a bad spot against a really tough concept, good play call by Sean Payton for their first touchdown last week. Or one of their touchdowns last week. So linebackers a little bit hit or miss. The thing is, though, they don't actually put a heavy emphasis on linebacker in this defense because the D-line is so good. Like, they make a lot of plays that the linebackers don't have to. Obviously, they eat a lot of blocks, making the job a lot easier. And then they actually just don't play a lot of linebackers. Like, Davis only played 40-something of the 66. I think it was 41 of 66 snaps last week. Barton's on the field for all of them. But they play with 1 or 2 linebackers most of the time. They play a lot of Cinco front, so 5 defensive linemen, and they bring Cam Curl down into the box. And Curl is like the best defensive player in the league that you've never heard of. Safety who's going to get paid massive money. He was PFF's 2nd graded safety for last season, so consistency is there. He's really good, and he plays some in the post. He plays some in the box. They've got a kid named Percy Butler who's super duper fast and is a 4th-round pick from a couple of years ago who's really come into his own. So he's kind of the 3rd safety that rotates in along with Derek Forrest, and that trio is really good. And whether Curl is playing up in the box or back with Forrest, they're good there. Corner, like Kendall Fuller, is a pro's pro. You can get him, but not consistently. He's very good. Benjamin St. Juste, super handsy on the other side. Like, it would not surprise me if Diggs can, get matched up on him and draw a couple PIs. Super physical, gets away with the PI bluntly on the 2-point conversion that Denver is attempting after the Hail Mary last week to win them the game. And then Emmanuel Forbes is kind of the wild card. Their first round pick, who is crazy ball hot, got his hands on a ball last week for his first career interception. Had he not slipped, he would have taken it to the house for a pick six. He's the NCAA all-time leader in pick sixes. Like, that's what he does. And he's playing about 2/3 of the snaps right now. Crazy good ball hawk. And if Josh Allen's going to challenge him, which we know Josh will take some risks, and the antithesis of risk averse, Forbes could get another one this week for sure. So is there stuff available in the secondary? Yeah, but it's pretty good. Is there stuff available on the second level? Yes, definitely. But that all is predicated on blocking things up front. And they've been very, very good at schematically getting their guys one-on-ones, and then those 4 first-round picks winning those one-on-ones. Specifically last week, Daron Payne had a 3-and-out literally by himself. That was one of the craziest sequences I've ever seen from a defensive lineman.
I hate the line for this game. I feel like it's probably going to be closer than what Vegas thinks it's going to be, but Vegas always wins. So what the heck do I know? For you, what do the Commanders have to do to get a win? Screw covering. Just like, what do they have to do to get a win?
Yeah, I think turnovers. I mean, look, there's 2 pieces of lazy analysis that are only lazy because they're so obvious, not because they're not correct. And that's turnovers and explosive plays, right? Yeah. If you win the turnover battle and you get extra possessions, you take away possessions from your opponent, it's going to be a lot easier. The question is, how do you do that? Well, you have to capitalize on opportunities. Josh Allen will throw you the football. Catch it. Like that, sometimes it's that simple. Like, the NBA is a make or miss league. Sometimes the NFL is a catch it or don't catch it league. And it's whether or not the announcer is going to be like, well, that's why that guy plays defense. So there's some of that. The explosive plays part is what killed them last week. And Logan always has fun with me because he's like, oh, cool. Good take, guy. How are they going to limit the explosive plays? And I think it's on Jack Del Rio is their defensive coordinator, to make sure that he's calling stuff that they're not going to botch. Like, they had coverage busts last week. So do you play vanilla enough that you do not bust coverage and you make the Bills earn it over the course of long drives? And then offensively, like, can you generate the explosive plays? Can you limit the big sacks and getting off schedule? And so that's on, a lot on the enemy to mix in the screen game, mix in the runs, that kind of stuff. Like, I think this can be a close game. I think the Commanders can win. The Commanders' ceiling is, I don't want to say as high as any team in the league, but it's really high. Like, Sam Howell's really talented. Their skill positions are great. Their defensive front is thoroughly capable of dominating a game. But that's not what actually makes a team great. What makes a team great is how consistently they achieve it. And they have yet to put together a full 4 quarters, even though they have gotten 2 wins so far. So that to me is the question. Like, how consistently can you execute? Can you limit big plays for Allen and company? Can you turn them over? And whether it's tricking him or whether it's just taking advantage of the mistakes, TBD. But yeah, absolutely, they can win this game. I'm not going to pick them, but they can.
Yeah. And to your point, you're not going to pick them. Why? Why do you think the Bills are just, that I know, right? Like, they've been to the AFC Championship. They go to the playoffs every year now. They have Josh Allen. Like, it's an easy reason to say, like, oh, I'm picking the Bills. But what is the particular reason? Is it the defense isn't good enough, or the offense can't go Hank 30 on the Bills D? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is going to be a much more significant challenge than what they face. I mean, Denver's defense is pretty good, but like, they're back. Like, Simmons is ridiculous. The safety, Surtain is maybe the best corner in football at this point. There's a couple Commanders players going into last week saying, like, they've played him and or watched the tape, and they're just like, that dude's better than everybody else. If not, he's certainly top 3. But their pass rush is not that good. Randy Gregory is like good as an idea. Frank Clark was out and is only still good as an idea. They don't really have that much. The Bills do. And specifically on the interior of the offensive line, like, that's kind of an unproven group. Like, Sadiq Charles has been phenomenal. Their left guard through 2 games. Well, what happens when you got Ed Oliver over you? Like, those are the kinds of questions that I don't know that they'll answer quite enough in the affirmative to keep up with Josh Allen and the Bills. And I just trust who the Bills are from a consistency standpoint over 60 minutes more than the Commanders. But I won't be surprised if it goes the other way. And boy, if it does, is it going to be crazy town going into that Eagles game for us? Like, my radio show is just going to be like, hey, call in and sound excited for 12 segments a day, 5 days a week.
it was already like 12 years ago, but back in 2011, the Bills started 2-0, and then the Patriots came to town and they beat the Patriots to go to 3-0. And that was like right in the middle of the Patriots dynasty. And this entire city for that 1 week was like, things are back, baby. And then, then reality kind of slapped him in the face.
Well, here's the funny part. So you mentioned 2011. That's the last time the Commanders were 2-0, and they won 5 games that year.
Wow.
So not great.
So Commanders fans do not need history to repeat itself this season.
No, that would be great. I mean, the good news for them schedule wise is like the Eagles are coming, which obviously is a massive test, but then they've got the Bears after that, who look like an absolute dumpster fire. So if they can win this one, like they could very easily be 4-1 while the rest of the week is playing week 5 because that Bears game is a Thursday nighter. So that at least gets you a cushion. But we'll see. They've been very streaky under Rivera. They've had extended winning streaks, extended losing streaks. And that's another element, Matt, that probably is worth mentioning. Like the familiarity of the coordinators and the coaches in this game is pretty interesting because Bieniemy's obviously got a long history going against the Bills in Kansas City in massive games. Obviously, Rivera was McDermott's mentor, and now that Sean's calling the defense again up there, like, is it the same defense they were running in Carolina? How familiar is it? How much is Ron giving that information to Eric? How much is Eric looking at a different defense versus, I mean, this would be a good question for you that your audience already knows, so I can ask you this off the air, but like, how different is the defense with Sean calling it versus Leslie Frazier calling it? Because Bieniemy's used to what Leslie Frazier calls. So like, what is the difference there? So there's a lot of like those schematic things that seem small and hyper detailed that I think are actually super important to this game. Because like, for instance, last week, Bieniemy owns Vance Joseph, which is hilarious because they're literally childhood friends. Like they grew up in the same area of Louisiana. And I've been saying the line all week, like that's no way to treat your friend. Eric Bieniemy just beats the tar out of him every single time. And it mattered last week. Like Bieniemy finally found Joseph's rhythm and they went on a 32-3 run. So what is that like this week with Bieniemy versus McDermott with the help of Rivera, who obviously used to have Sean coaching underneath him?
Yeah. It's a really interesting game. I don't think that 2 weeks ago, people at least here would have thought it was as interesting as it's going to be. I think probably a lot of people slept on Washington a bit and thought the Bills were going to be humming at this point. Right now, they're not really yet. So we'll see what happens. Craig, tell everybody where they can follow you, listen to you as they try and get ready for this matchup.
So on Twitter, which I'm still calling it Twitter, at Craig Hoffman. And then the radio show is on the Team 980, the Hoffman Show, daily 4 to 7, which you can listen to on the free Odyssey app. And then we also stream that live on YouTube at the Team 980. And then the Take Command podcast is me and my guy, Logan Paulson, who played 10 years in the league, one of the smartest guys. He always jokes that he had no business playing in the NFL. He wasn't athletic enough. So that's how smart the guy is. So you can listen to that anywhere you listen to this podcast.
Craig Hoffman, thank you so much, man.
You got it. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks to Craig Hoffman for joining us here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove, Mike Robier producing. We appreciate it. Check us out on video on the Sal Sports YouTube page. A lot of content there for you. Thank you very much for coming aboard. And of course, download, subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, WGR, Sports Radio 550, and the Odyssey app. The Buffalo Bills, 1-1. You're looking around the AFC. The Kansas City Chiefs, 1-1. And here's the Cincinnati Bengals at 0-2, Matthew.
Yeah.
And talking about compromised players, boy, Joe Burrow does not look right. Now, they're in a tough spot. We talk about what the Bills could do with Leonard Floyd. They're in the same spot with their franchise quarterback who just signed this record deal, who's one of the best in the business. Either they have to sit him and not have him already at 0-2, or they're going to play him, risk him re-injuring the calf, and being compromised while they're still 0-2. This is not a good situation for them.
You said him. You need him healthy. I think you just need to make sure that he gets healthy. And if that means you lose the next couple games, guess what? You've lost the last couple games with him on the field. Something is not right. Sit him down until he's healthy. Bring him back. And if that compromises your chance of a playoff spot this year, then so be it. But I don't know. Their best case scenario is maybe you sit him down for a couple weeks. He gets better. You sneak out a win against one of your next couple opponents. And then you just have a really, really, really strong final 3 quarters of the season. It's a really tough spot. I don't know what they're going to do. And I think a couple weeks ago, we would have said that, okay, the Bengals will beat the Rams, but the Rams have looked a little bit better than people have anticipated, and the Bengals have looked worse than people anticipated. It's a really interesting one. And the other one, too, is the Chargers. The Chargers this week are playing the Vikings in
Yep.
Minnesota. Both teams are 0-2. One of those teams is going to be 0-3 to start the season. And
That's right.
given the Chargers offense, I think they've scored 58 points or something 2 weeks into the season. They're the only team that has scored that many points, but is 0-2. I saw the stat somewhere. Minnesota, even though they're 0-2, I don't think Minnesota is like a terrible team. I think eventually they've got to get back in the win column. Could you imagine if the Chargers fall to 0-3 out of the gate? That might be too big of a.
What is the stat? They're the only team since some time to score.
Yeah, I think they're like the only team since a certain amount of time
Wow.
to be, I think, second or third in the NFL in scoring and not have a win.
Wow, that's crazy. And that Rams-Bengals game, by the way, so everybody knows, is a Monday night. There's 2 Monday night games this week, like there were last week. The first one, 7:15, Eagles-Buccaneers. Buccaneers are surprising 2-0. Eagles not surprising 2-0. So some team there is going to get their first loss. Rams-Bengals Monday night at 8:15 p.m. But you're right about the Chargers. That's a tough spot for them to be in. I still like them a little bit better than the Vikings here, but man, can you ever trust the Chargers? I'm not really sure. And hey, I think this is a big way of me saying and thinking about, and let's even go to Cleveland. They lose Nick Chubb. Deshaun Watson does not look that great, right? Through 2 games. No. Pittsburgh, they look really like, come on, not as good as I thought they might look. Matt, the AFC is there right now. Now, the Dolphins are a different deal. We can talk about them in a second. But otherwise, even Baltimore, Baltimore's been impressive. I'm not taking anything away from them. I didn't think they were great against Houston week 1, and then they played a compromised Joe Burrow in week 2. I think Baltimore is a good team. Right now, I'd say they're definitely the favorites to win the AFC North the way things look. But overall, the AFC looks like it's going to be there for some team to go grab it this year.
Yeah, it does to an extent, but I think there's a really big cluster in the middle. So I think that there is still, a conference to be had, but I really think the Chiefs are great, right? You got Patrick Mahomes, and I think the Dolphins are very good too. And then I would say the Ravens. I would say those are the teams right now that if I'm lumping all of them together, I would put the Bills right in the middle of that mix. And I would say those are your 4 best teams in the AFC. Obviously, you have 2 in your own division, which is concerning. But I think that's just the reality of it. And I think that this is one of those deals where, you hope the Chargers lose to the Vikings. And then you get to the Patriots and the Jets game. I think in that game, you're rooting for the Jets, right? To put the Patriots in that much bigger of a hole. Right? I mean, the Patriots would be 0-3.
The more losses you give, it's a tough one. I could see it. I could see either way. I think you could root for the Patriots and say then both teams are 1-2 then. And if you go to 2-1, you jump both of them. I want to hold on a second though. I want to go back to your Chiefs point. I'm not going to just say, I agree with you. The Chiefs are still probably the class team, but Matt, they've scored 37 points in 2 games. I don't think their offense looks right. And I don't know if it's going to look right all year with their wide receiver situation.
Yeah, but my thought is the defense has looked very good, especially last week, and I trust their offense to figure it out.
Probably this week against the Bears, they'll probably do that. You know what I mean?
They'll go put up 40
They do have the Jets coming up in a couple of weeks, so that'll be a interesting one. Yeah, the Jets Patriots game. I want to sit on that.
You'd want the Jets to win. You'd want the Jets to win and be 2-1 because then the Patriots would be 0-3, and you don't
trust the Jets at 2-1.
You don't trust the Jets. Weren't the Jets like at one point like 7-4 last year or 7-5 or something after they beat the Bills and then they lost all of the games after that?
Listen, not only that, it's great you brought that up. Last year, okay, the New York Jets, they come to Buffalo, they lose in the game 20-12. This is December 11th, and Robert Saleh after the game says we'll see them again in the playoffs. He means they didn't win a game the rest of the year. They didn't make the playoffs. Yeah. He said that after that game.
Any other games on the schedule hop out? I mean, I think, like I've said, everybody who listens to this podcast probably knows how I feel about the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins will wax Denver.
They should.
They should. I mean, they'll put up 40 against them. Yeah. Although Waddle concussion protocol, so who knows if they have him available. They're a team that cannot really, you have Hill and you have Waddle. I don't know how equipped they are to deal with an injury to either one of those players. They rely so much on their speed.
2 1-1 AFC teams, Titans and Browns. Someone's dropping to 1-2 there. And, we can say easily, well, the Titans aren't that good. I get it, but the division's not that great, and they haven't played that poorly. And the Browns, in their situation, if they drop and go to 1-2, I mean, I think maybe the story here is more about what have they got in Deshaun Watson after that huge contract they gave him.
Who do the Jags play this week?
Jags are at home to the Texans.
Okay, so they're gonna win that game.
Probably, but they haven't looked great either. First 4 weeks you're feeling out, but I mean, I don't think the Jags have looked great. I mean, they held Kansas City to 17 points. They only scored 9 points though against that defense. And then you have the Steelers and Raiders on Sunday night, 2 1-1 teams, classic rivalry there, going back to the 70s.
Root for the Raiders. You root for the
100%. You root for the Raiders.
That's not even a question.
I just wonder how the game's going to go, though. But I mean, yeah, you root for the Raiders, but
first to 20 wins.
Super impressed with either team.
First to 20 wins. You know, the funny thing though about the Raiders is, I don't think the Raiders are that bad. And I just watched the Bills beat the Raiders 38-10, which might sound ridiculous. Yep. I think the Raiders will finish this season as a middle of the road team. I think the Raiders could probably be a 7-8 win team. I don't think they're going to be a disaster by any stretch. I think they had a bad day. I think the Bills played really well and they played poor. And that's what happens, right? And kind of what I thought happened the week before with the Bills. I thought they played terrible, and the Jets defense played really well. And that's why it was the result that it was. That's the thing that's the overarching thing here, right? It's like, if the Bills play their best football, there are very few teams that can beat them.
Obviously only 2 weeks, but to your point about the middle, there's 9 teams 1-1 in the AFC. There are only 2 teams 2-0. That's the Ravens and the Dolphins. There are 5 teams 0-2 in the AFC. Who's the worst team in the AFC?
The worst team in the AFC.
Is it clearly Houston? Because CJ Stroud threw for 300 yards last week. I think they compete a little bit. I don't think they played that poorly in
Houston.
Right? I mean, could it be Denver?
Yeah.
Indy?
No, I wouldn't say Indy, because I think Anthony Richardson looked pretty good when he did play. It's probably Houston.
Probably.
Now that I'm looking at all the teams, it's probably Houston. I mean, I don't even think, like, if the Patriots lose this week and they're 0-3, I still don't think I would say them. I would still say that they're better than a lot of the teams that they're, have worse records than. I would say Houston probably.
It's really interesting looking at the standings. Right now, the Bills would be in 9th and not in the playoff spot. Kansas City would be in the 7th and final playoff spot.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, of course, would be out of it. They'd be the bottom of the tier, bottom of the league, 15th down there with Houston and those other 0-2 teams. So,
the Raiders would host a home playoff game if the season ended.
Oh my gosh, that's right. The Raiders, that's crazy. The Raiders would host a home playoff game. All right, before we head out of here, NFC really quickly, just want to touch on what the Cowboys have done. They look super impressive. So do the Niners. Niners play Thursday night against the Giants. Unfortunately, it looks like Saquon Barkley's not going to play. I guess the 49ers should probably roll that game. And then the Dallas Cowboys have Arizona. Dallas looks really, really good so far.
Dallas does look good. Dallas is kind of the combination of a dominant defense and an efficient but upside offense, and that's a dangerous combination. So I like Dallas a lot. I think they are very legitimate. I would say right now it's them and the 49ers is probably the class of the NFC, and the Eagles, excuse me. I got to include the Eagles in there. So I would say those are probably the 3 teams to beat in the NFC. It's weird, though. I think the NFC has those 3 teams that I think are really good, and then I think there's a massive drop-off. Like, I think in the AFC, that has a lot to do with the quarterbacks, right? Like, the quarterbacks in the AFC, you've got 8 or 9 of them who you probably feel better than most of the teams in the NFC. So I think the NFC might be a little bit more top-heavy right now, but then it just plummets after that.
All right, well, the Bills take on the Commanders. Possibility of some rain. There's a storm that's out there that it could hit a little bit and rain and wind, but looking right now like maybe that'll hold off. Maybe it'll come a little bit earlier than the game. So I'm hoping, Matt, from being on the sidelines, of course, I'd love to have a nice weather day, but it's a 1 p.m. start in Washington against the Commanders. And very real quick, some trivia on these 2 teams. They've only played 16 times ever, including a Super Bowl. Bills have won 10 of them, but this will be the 10th straight game the Washington Commanders will have a different starting quarterback against the Buffalo Bills in the 10th straight game they've played.
So, what's crazy is they played Buffalo in 2021, I think, because Emmanuel Sanders played in that game.
Yep.
And was it Heineke? Was he the starter then?
Yes, he was.
That would have been did you do this as like trivia with Joe? Like
I did.
The 10 starters.
So 21 is Taylor Heineke, 2019, Dwayne Haskins.
Okay, give me the next one after that.
Would you have gotten that?
I would have got Haskins.
2015 in Washington.
Jason Campbell?
No. You're way too early on him if you want it, or late, I guess. He's on this list, but not 2015.
So 2015, Kirk Cousins?
Yes. 2011 in Toronto.
Campbell.
Nope. Still
Wow,
not.
he was. Wow.
A guy that played for the Dolphins, went to BYU. John Beck.
I would have not gotten that ever.
2007. Now you got it. 2007.
Okay. Gosh,
Jason Campbell.
we're getting old. Oh my gosh.
2003. Steve Spurrier head coach. Patrick Ramsey. 1999. Brad Johnson. 1996. Gus Farrat. 1993. Mark Rippon. And then he was the last one that started 2 straight. Even before that, you had Jay Schrader, even before you get to Joe Theismann. So that's 10 straight, including Sam Howell this weekend. Different starting quarterbacks for the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call them, or have been called in games against the Buffalo Bills.
Don't yell at me because I'm a little bit younger than some people who listen to this. Isn't Mark Rippon who beat them in a Super Bowl?
It is. So
okay.
Rippon started 3 straight games, 91, 92, 91 Super Bowl, 92 and 93, I think it is. But either way, he did start 3 straight games against them, including the Super Bowl. Other than that, no one has started even more than 1 game since after that. Gus Farrat was the next one, and then 9 other guys counting this weekend.
Wow.
It's wild.
That is wild. That's like, I mean, the Bills did this for years. This wouldn't have been an uncommon stat if you were playing against the Bills all those years before Josh Allen. Also, we should mention Sean McDermott's 100th game as the Bills head coach on Sunday against Washington, which feels like yesterday that he was hired. You want to hear a funny story? This isn't a funny story. This is poor judgment on my part. I probably shouldn't even say this, but whatever. When the Bills hired Sean McDermott, I was in my office and I was working with Joe Biscaglia at the time. And Joe was like, you post it on social media. I will post it to our website. And I went to school with a guy named Steve McDermott. And for some reason, when I posted the thing, I thought Steve McDermott and not Sean McDermott. And it was up for about 10 minutes. Bills hire Steve McDermott as next head coach. And
wow.
So, I mean, it was only 10 minutes, but
you're still here. It's all good, buddy.
I'm still here. Yeah. I don't think they can retroactively fire me for that, but that was already that long ago.
Oh, Steve McDermott against Ray Rivera coming up on Sunday. Washington Commanders, of course. Sean McDermott used to work for Ron Rivera. That'll be the Washington Commanders head coach on Sunday when the 2 teams face off in Maryland, right? That's where the stadium is. They're in Maryland. Sabres are there too, by the way. They open their preseason Sunday.
Isn't that ridiculous that they play, I think, at 3:00 to open the preseason, 2 hours later? And
I think, is it 2 or is it 3? One or the other. You're right.
Something in the afternoon. That wasn't planned incredibly well. Sabres open training camp Thursday morning.
We will, I'm sure, dibble into that just a little bit here and there, nibble on that a little bit here and there on this podcast. In the meantime, thanks a lot for joining us. Sal Capaccio, WGR Sports Radio 550, Matt Bove, WKBW TV, Channel 7 in Buffalo, Mike Robier producing. We'll talk to you next time after the Bills take on the Commanders Sunday. Enjoy the game.